petit faute mon femme connait. OK. J'aime ça dire nous et ou sont qui pile chaleur et sous stage. Parlez-nous de carrière musicale. How did you integrate yourself in the business?
Well, how I integrated myself in the business is very interesting. Papam, son musicien, bassiste.
Okay.
Il était joué de New York. He played in a lot of bands, a lot of Haitian bands. I grew up with like that. Basket, Plume, But by the time I started growing up in the music field, when I started going to private school, learning classical piano, and I took the bass as jazz. But I did love dancing.
It's obvious.
Depuis non, votre maman m'a commencé à danser. Maman m'a toujours dit, depuis non, temps des tambours, faut danser, faut gouiller. So ça c'est dépendant enfant. So that always been like that since I was a kid. But I was always into like the Jackson 5, the Earth, Wind and Fire. I was always into the rock group and stuff. I was not into compa yet at the age of 11 and 12 and 13. But by the time I got to the age of 15 and 16, that's when I used to go to Haiti every year. But that one year, my mom went during carnival season.
Okay.
And then c'était pour King Passy, music, that was 96. Mm-hmm. And then là ça me dit, maman me dit ma carnaval, me dit, mami, that's not for me. But là ça mon oncle était Ayiti too. Mon oncle me dit, come on, it's a good experience. On fait expérience dans son musicien here. It's a good education for yourself.
Okay.
Long story short, I went. Maman me perdit petitely.
Où tu collé? Zombie m'a laissé, il va
m'arrêter. I fell in love with everything. When I saw King Posse, I was like, what? When I saw music, boom. Misha, Sweet Mickey, I saw it became like, okay, now I want to learn more. Okay. I got back home. I got to my grandparents' house. I said, I want a stack of CDs, please. I want to learn all these compa music. That's when I got into Zen. I got into Fantôme, Tabu Combo. I got into everything, and then I became a compa.
Avant ça, prior to seeing King Posse, what was your musical background? Like, what were you interested in?
I was more interested in R&B and hip hop and rock. I was listening to Blink-182.
Okay.
I was listening to my dad's a big Earth, Wind and Fire head, and Verdine White is a bass player that dances all over the place. So I remember I used to practice in front of the mirror, and I'd be like, yes, I want to be just like him, you know? You had another bass player from Blink-182. Also, he was a guy that would take his shirt off and play bass. So those are the icons that I looked very much so. And it's so weird how in the Haitian culture, I try to bring that, but it just comes out naturally. Because I just love dancing and moving around and stuff because of the bands in the R&B and the hip hop world and the rock world.
Okay.
Yeah.
But everybody can see that kind of influence in you in the way that you move and everything.
Right.
So here's my thing. In 96, while Ayiti, while Le Carnaval, you fell in love, you want to know about the compa music. And then was Carimi your first compa experience?
No. After that, when I came back to the States, I started not investigate. I started migrating to other things.
All right.
Came to realize I went to a Catholic church that had a Haitian band during Haitian service. So I joined that, and that's when, shout out to Woody No Hermano Jr. We became friends at a younger age.
Okay.
So he was playing drums at the church, and I'm playing bass. And I didn't know who his dad was until one day, yes, Hermano. And I said, huh?
Yeah, you're like, who's that?
And I'm like, who's that? And then I'm like, really? And then I went to him, I was like, wait a minute. And I went to my father. My father said, yeah, I know his dad. And then that's when we clicked, and then he took me to my first bop. That was Tabu Combo and Zen, and that's when I was like,
hallelujah.
And then I'm like, I fell in love with the whole compa.
Bon, pose une question. As a Haitian American, very young, you went to Tabu Combo and Zen and went, hallelujah. What did you see at that ball? Do you think we don't have at the balls that we actually go to nowadays?
That's a very good question. There was that time, and I was very young. I was very young. Everybody was older than me. I was like 15, 16 walking into these clubs. The experience was unbelievable because the vibe was crazy. especially for Zen.
Okay.
You know, the every Thursday vibe. Remember that?
Oui. Jeudi Zen, something like that.
Yeah, they used to have every Thursday at Senegal and every Sunday at Planet Malibu.
And then Fatima had Africa House, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, the vibe was, and it was always packed.
Yeah, people were going out.
It was always packed. But the vibe was insane. The show, it wasn't, I have to say, there was showmanship too.
Okay.
There was showmanship. And Tabu itself too their energy was ridiculous. Too, their speed, the energy, the showmanship also at that time for them was hot.
Okay.
I can't really say, the only difference I could say now is a lot of coliseri, you know, it's like bringing back the reggae vibe now, you know, that basement
yeah.
reggae vibe. So now it's more like, okay, I could get used to that too because I'm used to the reggae vibe also growing up in Brooklyn. So that's the only difference I could say really much. But as far as the only thing that really see a huge difference is how packed the party was.
Okay.
You know, when you would go to I remember when we used to go to Compa Creole. Remember how packed that used to be?
Yeah, those epochs are when they going to see more for one reason or the other. Let's fast forward. Carimi, we know, was a huge success. How did you become a member of Carimi?
So
how did that happen?
While I was grinding in Brooklyn, going into church, and I'm going to these little bands in and out and stuff like that, I was in a band called Mystic.
Okay.
Je te connais les teenagers parce que c'est même qui est plus jeune de jazz. And then après ça, j'ai fait connaissance avec Carlo.
Okay.
Which was his cousin.
Carlo Vieux.
Carlo Vieux,
okay.
Which was a good friend. I mean, he's a cousin of a good friend of mine.
Okay.
And he told me he has a project, and he would love to see if I would be interested. And I said, shoot, hell yeah, why not? You know, and that's when I told my brother he's a musician also, was a huge fan of Cadence.
Okay.
So he made me more of the history of Cadence and all that stuff. And I met the guys at the age of 16.
Wow.
And then
still very young.
Very young. They were working on the album still. But the band came out when I was 20.
Okay.
Because these guys was in college, so they had to take time off on the album and stuff. I would go to Carlo's dorm while they were doing the album, slept at his dorm. It was a great experience with these guys.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, I'm 20 years old. Matter of fact, graduated high school, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to music school, but I have to study business, but Carimi's coming out. And so the time is ticking, and I'm like, all right, cool. When is Carimi coming out? And then all of a sudden, boom, SOBs. And I'm like, there's a lot of people in front of me. This is great. This is awesome.
What was that experience like? 20 years old, very young, still very young, you know? And you are joining a band, you know, a lot of people's in front of you. What did that feel like?
It felt like, this one thing I never put in my head though. I didn't say I made it.
Okay.
I just put in my head that I gotta work harder.
Okay.
The reason why I say I gotta work harder is because I'm a musician, but I'm also a producer. There's so much more I wanna do musically.
Okay.
And when I saw all these people, I'm like, it doesn't stop here. I gotta keep going. That's my fuel. My fans is my fuel. Because they already like the presence, but they don't know what's the real deal of Noldy Cadet musically behind the music. You know? So I just felt like I needed to work harder.
As a member of Carimi, what was your best experience? What event or what program or what festival that you played and you went home? But you never thought that you made it. But I'm sure there was a point in time within the 14, 15 years of Carimi, like one day you went home after a gig and was laying in your bed and you said, wow, this is it.
There's two experiences that I had. The first one has nothing to do with the stage.
Okay.
Because growing up, I listened to a lot of Zouk, a lot of Auntie music.
Okay.
And there was times where I thought I would never meet them, you know, especially like a group like Kassav. But I remember there was one party we had to play, and it was at Guadeloupe. And then there was a female in front of me. She's dancing, singing, and everything. And then we're just vibing, because we were so tired that day too. It was a day party. And then Michael said, "N'a salué Edith Lefebvre." I'm like, oh, Edith Lefebvre.
Whoa.
And that was the time before she passed, rest her soul. And then all of a sudden, I was so tired, we got in the bus, and then Carlos said, "Is that Edith Lefebvre?" And then she was talking to, that time was Tanya, was our manager. As soon as I heard that was her, I ran down the bus and I said, and I did not know one word speak of French. And I just told Tanya, I said, can you please tell her I'm a huge fan? I'm a huge fan. And then she said, no, I'm your fan. And she was in front of me. That was the woman that was in front of me. So that was the most incredible experience that I ever had.
That she actually knew who you were, and she was a fan.
She was a fan, and I'm like, no, I'm your fan. I'm your fan. And that was my first one. My second one is Zenith. Okay. That was an experience, you know, especially you work so hard and then you have that crowd singing your songs and screaming and yelling your name. That's a very beautiful experience, you know. You realize how much hard work you put in, you know, and especially, how old was I? I was probably like 23 years old. Wow, that's 24.
Still young, still.
It's still young, you know what I mean? But it still grounded me to say, okay, this is awesome, but I'm getting plus travail pour faire still.
After a while in Carimi, I remember hearing that you were taking a break from Carimi, and you was taking and I remember also seeing you with, I'm not sure if it was Timiki, but I know I remember you working with Timiki and doing other things. What prompted that break?
The thing about it is with Carimi is, I'll be honest with you, you know, I was, shout out to Olivier and Chicago also, I was looking at their videos too the other day, and they were talking about giggers and all that stuff. The reason why I left Carimi, because Carimi was built with 3 guys, which I gave them so much respect. It's an institution, you know, and as a person that went to school for music and all this stuff, I came to a point in my life I was just like, okay, I'm kind of done working
for someone.
You know what I'm saying?
It happens.
It got to that point, but when I first started, it was not even into my mind I was working for somebody.
You just was working.
I was just like having fun, but it got to the point where you're getting older, the bills is different, you know, and responsibilities, and then you realize, wait a minute, that's not how the business, and I didn't know the business, let's be honest. That's one thing I had to blame myself. I didn't understand the business. Okay. So it's like, wow, okay, I get it. You know what? It's not for me. I got to figure it out. Timiki, in the other hand, was another experience where I thought that, you know, when Sandro came to me, he said that, you know, they need a bass player and stuff. He was trying to regroup certain things and stuff. I said, you know what? That's not a bad idea. Let's try this. Let's try this one more time and see how it goes, you know? But at the same time, it was not exactly
what you expected.
What I expected, and it's not like what I'm used to.
I
you know what I'm saying? I'll be honest. It's not like something I was used to and stuff, you know? Because I'll be honest with you, when Vayb first started and I heard Michael's voice, it was like, okay, that's what I'm home. I'm home. Right. It's like, I'm home. So, you know, so that's one of the, Timiki I'm not going to say it was a bad experience. He's a great, talented kid. You know, he has a lot going for him as an artist, you know, but it was just not my time to be with that type of situation.
Other than Timiki, Carimi, and now Vayb, what type of music, or have you worked with any other compa bands, or what other things that we don't know? Because nous avons un artiste et il y a un bagage qui a fait in the background that people just don't know.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Tell us a little bit more about that when it comes to you.
Me, right now, I'm working on the Noldy Music brand.
Okay.
The Noldy Music brand is more of what you see on stage is now you're going to see on a musical global scale.
Okay.
And the thing is, I definitely feel that now we're at the right time where Haitian people could do the pop culture now. It doesn't have to be compa only. Okay. So I'm working with artists now. Yeah, there's rap Creole and all this stuff, but now I'm trying to use the American style that I built. Because yes, I did like hip hop. I did a hip hop band. I was a music director for an underground hip hop artist. I worked. I was in a band that was signed to LL Cool J's label. So with all these experiences, I'm like, you know what? I might as well use that experience with my Haitian culture. And I'm working with 2 artists. You know, they're in the house with me right now.
Okay.
You know, so I'm working with them right now. We're working on a couple of tracks, which is a huge surprise. Okay. You know, especially with the Afro beat sound. So I ended up trying to figure out how to mix the Afro beat with my culture at the same time. So trying to match that up. And yes, I do hip hop, I do R&B, and I do pop. So I'm trying to figure out how, if let's put some Creole in some of these type of sounds and see where we can go with them. So yes, I'm working on a couple of tracks. I'm working on, I have one track that's coming out, but definitely should come out with a video.
Okay.
And I'll keep you guys posted and stuff.
That's very interesting. I'm waiting to see what you have in store with your new artists. Pilates gain experience. They have the knowledge, but they don't go into producing. And that's something that we talk a lot about in the Haitian music industry, where we have people that have a lot of talent, but they're not really using that talent to bring younger people into the business. So it's good that you're working with these young artists, and again, I'm looking forward to what you have in store for them. Now, we're gonna get into the whole Vayb situation, but during your off time after Carimi, where you wasn't really in a band, how were you keeping yourself busy?
Oh man, I was gigging, and I was doing daddy's daycare. I love my kids. Even my daughter says, "Oh my God, Daddy's so cool with all the moms."
But yeah, I can imagine.
Oh God,
I could imagine.
They would call me Mr. Mom.
What do you do? What do you like to do with your kids? What's the activities like with you? What's a day like with Daddy Noldy?
Daddy Noldy's day is like, my daughter. She's into the YouTubing and all that. She always likes to interview stuff. She always tells me when I'm going to start putting her on my platform so I can show her off.
So she can get the views, huh?
Yeah, so she can steal my views. And I said, wait, pussy. But, and she does volleyball. I just went to her volleyball game yesterday. She killed it. 10 servings. She basically brought the team back up. Shout out to her, Melody. Love you, babe. My son, oh man, he's a video game freak. So he's a Sonic the Hedgehog.
That's the age. That's the time.
And you know what's so crazy? Like, for his birthday, he got a Sega Genesis, and I'm used to Sega Genesis. So he's like, Dad, let's go play. And I'm like, I'm chilling with him. So Daddy's daycare is more like pick up the kids from school, homework, chill with them, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes they get shocked that Daddy could get upset too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 'Cause even my son tells me, yo, Dad, you're so mean. You're so mean. But I guess that's the Haitian that's inside of me.
That's inside of you.
Yeah.
Now let's move a little bit away from the music. Even though we're still gonna talk about the music, but you mentioned something that I've I said that I'm going to use my platform every now and then when I get an artist like yourself that's experienced, that's worked in different bands, and that knows a lot about the industry, to talk about that, which is one of the conversations that I wanted to have during the Labor Day weekend for the Hangout, about the giggers and the band owners and the way the industry is going and how it affects the way we do business. As someone who used to gig with Carimi, we don't need to go into details as far as what it is with Vayb now, but how do you see this phenomenon where someone plays a vital role in a band and then for whatever reason, whether they find something better or, they decide they want to spend more time with their family, they just up and leave like that? How do you as a person who's played, I'm assuming both roles, as a band owner or a band member and a gigger, how do you see that in the Haitian music industry?
Well, I'm gonna be very blunt with this one. I think I'm gonna get a little backlash on this one because I have a different opinion about it.
You can handle it.
Yeah, I can. I'm older now. The way I grew up, I was in rock bands, and my dad is in bands. My dad still to this day are best friends with some of the musicians. And the rock bands I was with, let's take Linkin Park as a perfect example. Rest in peace, Chester, the lead singer. Chester and I can't believe I forgot his name, the rapper. They were the main founders of Linkin Park, but they have musicians also. So Linkin Park was the group, but you had two maestros. But at the end of the day, it was still a group. They're not giggers. In the American industry, giggers are musicians that play for R&B artists. Like if you get like an Erykah Badu, and then you have Jill Scott. I have friends that are musicians that are gigging. Like I have Kevin, that also gigs for French Montana.
Okay.
He's a keyboard player.
Okay.
So I grew up with that mentality. When I never understood how, we're a band in the Haitian community and we got giggers. So it's like, wow.
excuse my ignorance, which is why I have people like you who come here because they can enlighten me on things that I don't know. What do you think what is the difference between a gigger and a member and a band owner?
Well, the thing is, a band owner definitely takes care of the investment. A gigger has nothing to worry about that.
Okay.
That's one thing. So which means that a band owner has a lot of hard work they're gonna do.
Okay.
You know, not only investments, they have to make decisions. Sometimes they'll even get a pay cut to pay their giggers.
Mm-hmm.
It is what it is. You know, let's be honest here. As far as the giggers go, sometimes they get paid less, but it depends on how you make your contract.
Okay.
This is where I wasn't smart enough when I joined Carimi. You know what I'm saying? It's not like I never discussed about it. It was just like, yes, I got paid. You know what I'm saying? That was it. So that's all of that.
In some cases, yes, I'm on stage, and that's all that matters.
So that's all that matters, you know? And especially, shout out to the young cats. I got to say this. Being on stage is wonderful, but sometimes you got to make sure you don't lose yourself, you know? Because I got cats, I'll be honest with you, say, I want to join because I want to get more girls. Really?
Wow. Yeah. I've heard that.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm like, really? Come on, man. You know, you have to do it for the passion. At the same time, yes, you got to start from somewhere. You got to start from scratch. So yes, you got to start as gigger and stuff and make yourself way up, because Michael built a platform for me to be in. I'm not a founder per se, but also I don't look at myself as a gigger, and Michael did not portray me as a gigger, especially being in a front man with him, you know? So, and Vayb doesn't have, everybody else does not feel like a gigger. We're here as a team and we make decisions together.
Okay.
You know, sometimes we could definitely don't agree with each other and argue with each other, but at the end of the day, we get the results done.
As a seasoned musician working in the HMI, and you're very fortunate to have participated in 2 bands that's very successful, even though Vayb is very young, but definitively the success is there. Even if Vayb was to decide today that, you know what, we're gonna call it quits, there's no doubt in anyone's mind that you guys have dropped an outstanding album. What do you think is the biggest problem in the Haitian music industry as we speak?
Wow. And they'll probably get another.
Well, I mean, like, if you had the opportunity,
I already have a backlash on my. I'm definitely gonna get a backlash.
If you had to fix something ASAP, what would it be?
Growth. You know, my thing is that. Listen, I grew up in a household where my dad used to listen to Magnum Ben. I used to listen to Zekle, Reginald Polica, Emily Michel. But now I'm listening to Afrobeats. I'm listening to trap R&B. I'm listening to trap soul. I'm listening to EDM. Music has evolved to a whole different situation. For me, compa is dope. Compa is different. But sometimes we have to evolve with our sound. I feel that our musicians are afraid to evolve. Like, look, we was just listening to a harmonic.
Yeah.
They so different. They do things so differently, and they evolve themselves. Vayb, we try to do that. Carimi did that. You know what I'm saying? Ayiti Live to me is like the Haitian John Legend. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, yo, you got some of these cats that are willing to change. You know what I'm saying? That's willing to turn the music around to a different vibe. Même si que you still want to use your waist. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, you got like the Africans. Longtemps, African music was dope, but you would not catch us to listen to it all the time.
Exactly.
Now everybody's listening to Afrobeat.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
We have events around it now.
Exactly.
Even in Haiti.
Look at reggaeton. Reggaeton came from the streets of Panama before it was not being accepted. Now reggaeton took a whole different level. So I'm like, okay, what can we do to bring our Haitian music to a whole different level?
What can we do?
It's just try to work differently with our production. Try to do something differently.
You think it's a production issue?
I don't think it's a production. I think it's a little bit of a production issue. I think it's more of a little bit too, because we can't stay too old school. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I appreciate and I love old school. You know what I'm saying? I could listen to, sometime in my house, my kids are like, Dad, you're not 50 years old. Why are you listening to these stuff? And I'm enjoying it. And they still got records at home listening to these things. But it's just that I feel like compa still need to evolve. We're still, at the time, okay, boom. Let's go back to when compa Creole. Let's go back to when Carimi came out. Let's go, even Zen. You know, Papash.
Yeah.
These were new sounds. That's why people was vibing through them. These are new sounds. Now we're at a time where, okay, you know what? There's a lot of bands starting to sound like Carimi now. You know what I'm saying? Or there's a lot of bands starting to sound like Class. Or there's a lot of bands starting to sound like New Look.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, let's evolve ourselves. You know what I'm saying? Let's listen to other music. Let's not listen to compa only. You know what I'm saying? That's why, as a bass player, I'll be honest with you, some musicians would probably say, Noldy's not a compa player.
That's what I was about to ask you, because you know what? I've had this discussion before. Whenever someone tries to incorporate a different type of sound into compa, then you have the old compa heads. You know, I'm going to include even members of the media, because, you know, the Haitian industry is very much governed by the way the media speaks about you.
Correct.
You understand? And I see that whenever we try to do things a little differently so that we can incorporate a new type of people, you know, to enjoy and appreciate our music, all of a sudden then, you know, we know Carimi got a lot of that.
Oh, we did.
You know, you guys got a lot of that.
We did.
Disco, ça c'est disco, ça c'est,
pop.
you know.
That was bubblegum.
Exactement. Est-ce que vous pensez, what do you think we can do when when things like that happen? Because again, un pilates that their sound is different, but because of this, because I truly believe if I'm not popular home, then it's going to be very hard for me to be popular outside of home. Mm-hmm. So, si que nous-mêmes nous pas vle accepter these new sounds and, you know, the way new way of doing things, what do you think we need to do as far as getting new sound incorporated into the Haitian music industry?
I think that, you know, that's one thing that Vayb did with this album. We tried to stay, and the thing is, Vayb has a lot of different diversity in the band. Again, Shidley Abraham, this guy is
a genius.
Oh my God. I call him Mr. Miyagi of compa. You know? And then when you have somebody like that, and then you have somebody like T-Ben in your group, and you got somebody like Jude in your group, and then you got somebody like T-Mondo. T-Mondo's young, but he's old at heart.
Yeah, you can tell. You can tell. God bless his soul. You can tell.
He's old at heart. So it's like, okay, we got a whole mixture of situations going on here. So that's why the album, you could get, we have the old school, but we have the new school too at the same time. So it's like, it's a little tease. You got to give a little taste. You can't give everything. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're grabbing it, like, come here, check this out, check it out. You can't do it you can't give it all away. Now, when you got somebody like Rudy Rude Boy, that's like outside the compa, but he gives you a little compa reggae vibe.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's still teasing you. Then all of a sudden, he takes you to Abodai. Then all of a sudden, he takes you to Afrobeat. So it depends on how you captivate your fans.
Change, but not too much.
Change, but not too much. You know, like, for instance, I can't wait for that track I told you about. It's an Afrobeat, but I gave you a little... You do want to grind that Haitian vibe to it. You know what I'm saying? So it's how you captivate, it's how you produce the music and how you could captivate your fan base. You know, and that's
I see. I'm looking forward to that track. So let me ask you a question.
What's up?
It's like being home and you have parents, mom, dad, that you love very much. I love my mom, I love my dad, and you know, all of a sudden you're away in college and you get a phone call, mom and dad is divorcing. How was that like for you as an original member of Carimi when you heard that?
Wow.
I took you way I took you way far and then I pulled you right in, boo.
I'll be honest. You know what it is? Carlo, Richard, and Michael, we all three of them, I have a different relationship with all.
Okay. That's good.
Different, and I have a relationship. Carlo's the godfather of my daughter.
Oh.
Richard is a producer that I looked up to from day one. Michael, let's forget about it. I call him the big bear brother. You know, it hurt. It hurt because even I felt like all that hard work I did. I'm like, wow, this hurts. You know, at the same time, I'll be honest with you, you know, as a kid in the house, you know the secrets, you know the skeletons, you know, and yes, I was the kid that was in the middle of everything. Some of them, all three of them probably think I never knew much, but I did because like my parents too, like any other Haitian American kid, like, yeah, my parents are not getting along, you know, so I kind of had an idea, things would go south, but it was in due time because, listen, how you say that?
Tapirama.
Yeah,
Tapirama payo.
Thank you. My Creole is always bad.
It's good.
It is okay. Yeah, Tapirama tout monde est toujours différent. You understand what I'm saying? And and people's lives change. Listen, we're talking about 3 guys that was in college.
Yeah.
There was no kids.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So eventually you evolve to something different. You know what I'm saying? Carlo evolved to somebody different. Richard, damn. I didn't expect Richard to do all that, to be quite honest.
A lot of people did it.
You know what I'm saying? When Richard came to me about this, I'm like, oh, wow.
Oh, so he did come to you?
Yeah, he did come to me about it. He came to me. He's like, Noldy, can you help me with this? What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And I'm like, oh, go by all means. You know what I'm saying? Do your project the way he wants it, He did it. I never heard from Michael, but I'll be honest with you. As soon as I saw Michael's phone ring, I haven't heard from Michael for probably over 5 years.
Wow.
And then I'm having dinner. And
what was that
and
like?
I saw Michael.
Tell me, no, pause. When you looked at your phone after 5 years not hearing from him, and you looked and you was like...
You want to hear a funny story? I picked up the phone and said, I'm coming to see you this weekend. Don't even talk.
Wow.
It was like, I already knew. I said, nah, Mike, don't even say no more. We're going to talk, but we need to talk.
Good.
You know what I'm saying? And we spoke. We had a good vibe. And he kept it 100 and I kept it 100, And I told him, listen, I don't like saying my mentality Haitian. I don't like saying that. But I've been doing so much business. Now it's like, okay, I don't mind coming back. Because I love my culture. I appreciate it. There's so much we can do with it. But at the same time, when it comes to the business, I don't want to stress it. So I just let Michael and them handle it. That's the part where the founders comes in. I don't want to stress the founding situation. But I will work hard to my best ability of what I've known and what I can do and what I've brought to Carimi, but more.
But let me ask you a question, because after you left Carimi, a lot of people that didn't know why, and we still don't know why, which is not even important anymore, but a lot of people always assume that especially that's Haitian American, decided that they're no longer going to be part of a band. Carimi was hot. That was hot.
And you know what's so funny about that? I left during the Buzz album.
Exactly.
Right when Buzz came out.
Exactly. So they assume that Monsieur juste fatigué.
Yes.
Monsieur juste pas intéressé à la ça encore. He's gonna find something better. Ou bien li joindre something better. Monsieur retire kon la bagay haïtien.
I can't say that I found something better. My problem is this. Like I said on my letter, I felt like I was climbing a ladder, but the ladder is still going down. It was like, okay, album out. Okay, what is it? More tours? That's it? I worked on a couple of tracks. I felt like I didn't have control of my musician skills within Carimi.
Okay.
Which I had to respect that again. There's nothing wrong with the fact that was Richard and Carlo. That was their project. That's their baby. You know what I'm saying? So who am I to say, bum spas bum bum fem music bum? No, who am I to do that? You know what I'm saying? So I had to respect that. And the business was kind of annoying because I was like, let me tell you something. Even people joke around with me. Noldy always says, I'm not a bad guy. I don't like arguments. I don't like problems. I don't like situations. There were certain things that was going on. Especially, like I said, let me go back to the fact that when you have kids with parents that gets divorced, they were there for a few years to understand what happened. That was also a part of a situation. When I'm looking at Carrie, I'm like, come on, man, guys, this is a mess. I'm like, this is not cool.
And nobody even knew that.
No.
Not to go into details, but everybody always assumed that because you guys had the longevity that you guys had.
The thing is, we kept it together.
Exactly.
We try to keep it sane.
But that's the biggest problem in the industry, that people always assume, people see that whenever things are not going well, just crasé. Right. But from what not only you have said and what has come out since the breakup of the band, people realize that there was a lot of problems that we just didn't know because you guys held it together
we
so
held it
well.
We held it together so well, to the point where, we had a lot of meetings. We do meetings. Richard said it one time in an interview. We had a lot of meetings and stuff. But like I said, I'm not blaming nobody.
Yeah, well,
Sometimes you gotta separate.
Yeah, and for the better, for the better.
For the better.
For people can grow.
I want you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
So let me ask you. So now let's get into the current thing, which is Vayb.
Yes.
So you get the call from Michael. You're having dinner with your family. You get the call. You say, "I'm coming. I'm coming." So you go to that. Tell us about that first meeting with him.
That first meeting with Michael was.
Did you guys hug as soon as you saw each other?
Yeah. I did hug him.
Did you cry a little bit?
No, I did
You
not.
seem like a type.
You think I'm a sap? That's why.
You seem like a crier.
I am a sap, but not a sap. I am a crier, but not too much. But no, it was great. It was great. You know, even the kids when they saw each other, because even the kids were close to each other. At one point, you know, they even looked at my daughter like, "Damn, you guys got big." You know, so the vibe was awesome. The vibe was awesome. You know,
it was you and him alone and the kids?
No, just me and him alone. We spoke. But the kids came, you know, family came to see each other. I was like, let me kill two birds in one stone, because I don't live in New York anymore. Okay. So me and him spoke and stuff, and we just spoke business. You know, we spoke about the past. I told him stuff I didn't like that happened. This is how I felt. This is how I felt. Blah, 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 blah. And then he was like, okay, you know, let's just make this happen. I'm like, if you win it, you win it. You know, at one point he was definitely nervous if I was still playing bass, because I did leave Mickey for a period of time. I left the music industry for a period of time after Mickey for my mom. Yeah. Rest her soul. She passed away with breast cancer.
I remember that.
So I didn't even know I was coming back. So Vayb also was a help for me to heal with this pain. You know, because I was still a mess joining Vayb. Yeah. You know, so it was it was great. I said, you know what, I'm in for the kill. Let's go. Wow.
Now I'm gonna ask you a very intimate question, only because, like, again, you're the child. Had you gotten the invitation from Richard, would you have taken it?
No.
Okay.
No.
We'll leave it at that. Now, being a member of Carimi and now being a member of Vayb, what do you see is the biggest difference since you left Carimi?
You mean as
business-wise, as a whole, yeah.
In business-wise as a whole, but not Vayb. Business-wise, but not Vayb, right? It's challenging now because you got technology. People are growing and people are doing shows right now. And I'm like, nice. It's why Carimi, I'm not saying Carimi's the one that started doing shows, but now there's a lot of bands that's doing shows, which is I'm happy about. When it comes to business, if you're talking about finances and people, promoters and everything, I still feel like it's still the same way.
Nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed. Wow. I'm sorry. You already look at my eyes, it's a very sour situation. It's like some of these promoters, it's like, come on. And you know what's funny? I was reading an article about Tiwa, African artist. It's everywhere. A promoter in Kenya disappeared on her, didn't pay the hotel, did not take them to the airport, payroll, everything. So I'm like, Jesus.
But let me ask you, est-ce que vous pensez que ça dit là is very important? Because, again, let's not forget, Noldy son moun comme si qui commence dans business depuis à 16 ans. You understand? Ça nous pas besoin d'entrer dans l'âge, nous connaissons combien de temps Carimi te gagné. Now, la bien fait avec Vayb. He has a lot of experience. And li fait que ça dit nan moment de qui différence qui te gagné from when he was with Carimi and now with Vayb. And he has said when it comes to the business, nothing has really changed in the way that we do business. Do you think this is a contract problem?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Because when I'm in the American industry, when I'm working with artists, we got paperwork. I got a whole library of contracts, even modeling contracts, even radio contracts. You know, and that's the only problem is that we don't deal with contracts. We do a lot of verbal contracts. That's what they call it. Verbal.
Why do you think we do verbal contracts when it's just so easy to just sign
a paper? Because they know for a fact that if something happens, they go to take them to court. But knowing the fact that there's a lot of fees you got to deal with anyway, you know. So, I even discussed that with my group. Like, we gotta have to do contracts sometimes because there's some promoters like nous pas prendre coup même genre, but gain coup We'll go ensemble and kusayo. Yo, when you're going home and then you're like, okay, we take the L. How you expect us to feel? You know what I'm saying? I remember there was a gig we did in Canada.
That's what Carimi.
No, Vayb.
Oh, wow.
Vayb. And then I was in Ottawa. And then we got on stage. We were ready to play. This is what I love. This is where I realized my band is gangsta. Michaels was on the side, and Michael's like, you want to play now? We didn't get paid yet. Shedler he unplugged this thing, and then T-Ben took the keyboard. And I said, really? I was like, okay. And then somebody said, what's going on? There was a crowd of people, which is a dangerous situation.
Yeah, because they're not going to understand that they didn't get paid.
But me, I'm so flatbush, I yelled out and said, we didn't get paid yet. And then it's like, you didn't get paid? And then you got people sending $50 from the crowd.
Wow.
And stuff. It's like, jouez pour nous. And then Michael's like, you know what? Let's take the L. But Michael said on the mic, he said, it's okay. Pas un problème. Même compas. Piqué devant.
Wow.
You know, it is what it is. You know,
we need to do better, man. By contrat, ça son problème. And it's not just, let me let you guys know, it's not just with the musicians. It's also with the media. It's also with promotions. It's really bad.
It's ridiculous, you know. And the funny part is I have people in the American industry that knows that.
When it comes to the Haitian industry, there's no contracts.
Yes, they know
so
that.
when you ask them for a contract, they look at you like, what?
No, they do look at me like, what? But they know my background. So when I used to do the studio sessions as a producer in the American industry, I already have the contract ready before I even press a button.
Okay, cool.
You know, and that's the reason why I'm like, okay, this part never changed. So I still think it's still a process. It's still a growing process. It's us that has to educate one another about it. And like I said, if you know that you can't do a party, just don't do a party.
Yeah, but people always want to take their chance in this industry. I don't know why.
This ain't no lotto.
Yeah, that's what they think.
People's lives is not lottery. You know what I'm saying? Because you got these musicians, even the giggers. You know what I mean? They have to pay them. They got kids. They got bills to do. They got bills to pay. I mean, stuff like that. So it's hard. It's hard, especially when I was in Carimi, when there was promoters that didn't pay, man. And I imagine, I started at 20. I had my daughter when I was 24. So kunyela, my whole responsibility changed. So now when I see I'm not getting paid, I'm like, all right, so sambu fela, for my bit la. So now you got to think of, how am I going to do this? Now, thank God for Uber. You know, there's musicians that's doing Uber, but I really don't want to do Uber.
Yeah.
You know, I'm one of those musicians that won't do Uber. I'm sorry, I can't do it, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, because you're very well known. That's one thing.
I was in Manhattan. I was not back in the industry. I was before even Vayb called me, and I just left Timiki. I'm in Manhattan, right before the Holland Tunnel, traffic, and somebody else in the car. Noldy, una pay? I'm like, who's that?
Yo connais Définitivement.
So now it's like, okay, so I can't do Uber. So now I had to figure out, like, Shedley, again, smart guy, build a studio. I'm doing drum tracks. I'm producing. You know what? Film for an album. You know what I'm saying? And Shedley now is on my case to be like, and he's the one that gave me the idea. Noldy, it doesn't have to be compa. Just take a Haitian artist, produce him. You already made your name already. So Shedley gave me that idea, and I said, you know what? I already have the platform. Let me brand this situation. So that's what came about. I was like, all right, Noldy Music.
Also, that caught my attention. You mentioned technology, which is the major difference when it comes to your experience with Carimi and now Vayb, because époque Carimi pour qu'on get tout social media ça.
Oh my God.
You understand? Now again, you're even more popular because people see you. They see you on Instagram, they see you on Facebook, they know who you are.
I am 3 years old on Instagram. I am 3 years old. When after I left Carimi, and I saw technology. Matter of fact, I got into technology when I was in Timiki.
Okay.
C'est son gros qui montrait Instagram buys high. And I'm like, what? And then Manny Drums.
Yeah, I know Manny Drums.
Shout out to
Moonful.
him. That's my bro.
He's mad cool.
Yeah, that's my brother. He called.
What's this thing with this umbrella, man? Give me an interview avec Monsieur quand même. But this umbrella thing, man. On monde qui pas connaît checker Manny Drums. sur Instagram. Monsieur,
Oh,
tout petit
yes.
parapluie avec,
Oh, my
man.
God.
Toute
This
photo, c'est
I'll never
parapluie.
forget it. Let me get off for a moment. We go back to the question. I remember when Dro went somewhere. We were in Haiti, me and Manny. It was my birthday, and it was just me and Manny. And Manny we just stayed there and we spoke throughout the whole night and stayed up on top
Yeah,
of
he's a
people.
cool dude,
He's a
man.
cool dude and he's loyal. You know, shout out to him. Much love for you, Manny. But yeah, when I joined the group, and I'm like, oh, Instagram, now they're showing us playing, they're showing this, they're showing that. Before, boom, I'm looking at there's like a bunch of bass players on Facebook, and I'm meeting them, you know, and I'm like, wow, they're dope. And then, but at my time, you had to do a lot of churches, gigs for everybody.
To meet them, yeah.
To meet people, to even know people, to make people know who you are. That's how I ended up grinding in the streets. Now you could just grab your phone and just play. And then all of a sudden, people's like, oh my God, yeah, he's bad. You know, and that's how you can get a gig. You don't need to run out your house anymore. So technology made a huge difference. Now, but sometimes too, it could be not on your side too, because so far on foot, son stage,
Tout moun well.
tout moun well.
So
And
for
trust me,
baggy moun.
I'm guilty. I'll never forget first gig of Vayb, okay? And my daughter was watching, and then she tried to text me, and she's like, Dad, your bass is detuned. And I couldn't look at my phone, and I didn't know my bass was detuned. I tuned it, but I left it on top of the monitor, and I went, and then we had to get off stage to come back on stage to dance. As soon as I grabbed my bass, you know the music is loud and everything. I can't tell if it was detuned. Then all of a sudden, next day, people saying, tell your bass player to buy a tuner. This and that. Oh, you're foul shit.
You made it pour.
You made it pour.
Yeah, I think I remember something like
to
that.
the point where I'm like, Cat, God, that Keisha Haitian. Yeah. I was like,
But you agreed
wow.
you were off.
And I was off.
Okay.
And I dealt with it. Because at one point, I said, okay, I'm off. And then while I'm playing, I've tuned it right back. When I heard it the next day, I was like, oh my God, I was bad. But now I was like, you know what? This is never going to happen. Now there was like an eager that came out of me. I'm like, and an ego too. Because I was just like, nobody's not going to take your it.
Because it's all over by the time you realize you've done already.
Exactly. It is what it is. And that was my first backlash on social media. And ever since then, I'm like, all right, cool. It's all right. Bad.
You guys got that one.
It's cool. It's cool. It's cool. But
You have you mentioned before that, you know, un pile différents talents. There's a lot of young dudes in Vayb. You have Jude, you have Jude, you have T-Ben, you have Ziggy, you have Mundo.
oh man, Ziggy's another one. Ziggy's a producer.
Yeah.
You
I've
know.
heard he's working on some stuff. And he's a DJ as well,
He's
right?
a DJ as well. He's a Mac tech.
Oh, Ziggy, non, c'est Mac Tech, ma vini jwen wè.
He's a Mac tech. And if I have a photo, the whole computer is disassembled and then he puts it back and it becomes fast.
Wow.
So Ziggy, and he's my roommate.
Oh, okay.
So he's my roommate when we go on tour.
Yeah.
So Ziggy's a multi-talented kid, you know.
What do you think? How do you think that helps having these young? Parce que say you number guy, you know, ni Kai ni Vayb. In fact, people was assuming that, you know, everybody would be part of these bands would either be well-seasoned musicians, but Vayb went a whole different way. You know, besides yourself, Shidley, and Mike, that we know, these guys are really young and they're doing their thing. Yo pote yon bagay devant Diazan que that attracts my daughter who's 16, for example. When you go and you see shows like, you know, these guys are dancing and they're doing the kid and play moves and things like that. Like, this is very, very new. Na compare. You know, how did you guys come up with the idea of bringing young people to the band? Or younger, because you guys are still young too.
The thing is, there's one thing that Michael wanted, like, because remember, Carimi started that vibe too. You know, when we got together, we were like, okay, we need to come back what we started, but with more. You know, and Ziggy's the youngest one, so he knows what's hot. He knows what's popping. You know, me, I ended up knowing what's popping because of my daughter. You know.
Yeah, they'll teach you stuff.
Matter of fact, the dance that we did on our first concert, that was my daughter that made that dance.
Wow.
You know, I brought it to the guys. So as far as that goes, we just figure out of working together. We stay, And we all got kids except Ziggy and T-Ben. You know, like Timondo's kids, oh my God, they're so adorable. They dance. They even know the whole album.
Wow.
You know, and Timondo, I think that's what keeps Timondo's heart very young, his soul very young too at the same time. So Timondo also helps with the dancing caliber. You know,
he's a ball of fire behind there, Gongsa.
Oh, petit? You telling me?
Yeah, people think you dance. He danced a lot too.
Yeah, he danced a lot. He danced. That's why when I'm like when I'm in Vayb, that corner.
Yeah,
that
you and him.
That corner is something else. You know, it's a fire corner. You know, but we just try to basically the word is swag it out. Let's just swag it out, you know, and have fun with it at the same time. That's what we try to do.
That's good. Let me ask you a question. This swagging out, which is the dancing that people love and people enjoyed it in Carimi.
Swag.
You understand?
Swag.
You know, now they see you as the Guyad master.
Right.
Right? I know at first when Vayb first came out, j'ai m'attendais un interview. I think it was either Platform Magie. And you know, the older media personalities in that industry, they had a lot to say. Oh, Noldy does it up. You know,
yeah, I heard that.
He needs to concentrate more on what he's doing and that it's affecting the way the band looks. How did you feel about that?
I don't care. I don't care. Let me tell you something. You know who I look up to? Herbie Hancock. When he started playing synthesizers and he was playing some weird stuff, he doesn't care. Quincy Jones, don't care. Who else? A lot of musicians I look up to don't care. And if you want to go to the Haitian scene, let's go to the Haitian scene. Daru Pascal, don't care. He came out with a sound, and they still appreciated it. Sometimes you gotta take a chance. You can't care too much of what other people's gonna say. Yes, you have to in a way so that people could be attracted to. But guess what? I remember somebody had a group chat. I think there's group chats in the HMI.
Yeah.
That's another thing I found out. And then
there's a trillion of them.
Noldy danse et toi. Da da da. And then one girl said, "Listen, are you the guys that's gonna pay to come into the ball or not? Because the ladies that are coming in are gonna pay to come in to see Noldy wine."
As a matter of fact, you know what's so funny? I mentioned that because Karel was having a Facebook Live and he was mentioning how, you know, when there's a band and certain musicians are not there, like why can't we have giggers fill in? You know, for example, you don't have to actually go to a Vayb concert and see Noldy there. It could be any bass player. I said, no, excuse me, that's not true. Because
I heard that.
Yeah,
I heard about that because I was listening to him about that.
Listen, I understand where he's coming from, but at the same time, I'll be honest with you.
If I go to Earth, Wind, and Fire and Verdine White's not there, we got a problem.
Exactly.
Why we gotta lose that kind of love and respect about it?
And in our industry, not to cut you off, it's even more because probably we get un bassiste cap bay live là on son.
Oui.
Okay, and I mentioned, for example, wapon guitariste like El Pozo. I don't see me going to class and not seeing El Pozo playing.
I'll be honest with you. Same here.
When El
Pozo, when I saw that he quit, I was like,
you talking Belcord.
Belcord.
Yeah.
When I saw Belcord, I was like, what?
And he reminds me of you. He has the same.
No, we're cool. We always talk to each other. It was like artist pop. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, what? He's not gonna be there? That makes no sense. You know, and Michael told me, I remember somebody told me, and Michael said it too, is that when I left Carimi, it was like a huge... It was a huge situation, huge gap. And I'm like, really?
Yeah, it was. Even though, you know, over the time, people have come to appreciate what Jeff bought.
And Jeff is a dope bass player. He's dope.
But I remember after you left, everybody, especially the ladies, I must say, was like, Catman. You understand what I'm saying?
Right,
because there's a vibe that you bring to the stage. You know, everybody has their own vibe, but
I realize with this industry is that, you know, we tend to fine. It is what it is. And Ron Felix, that's holding it down until I get back. nobody probably don't know, but I'm gonna say he's my mentor. I'll never forget when I was 16, when Rudy brought me to Tabu, you know, Eva Bell also is my mentor too, shout out to him. But Ron said something, and I told Ron, oh my God, you just kicked some ass on that stage. And Ron said, I'm just letting people dance. And I kept that in my mind from that night that he told me that at SOBs. And from that time, I said, you know what? All I want to do in the Haitian industry is make people dance as a bass player. And that's all I want to do. You know what I'm saying? I remember I had one media guy that told me, what was so funny, he was like, oh, when I play bass, the note doesn't come out. You know, that guy made me go back in my room and put my headphones on, and I was like trying to figure out what he's talking about. And then I'm listening to the notes that I'm hitting, and I'm like, because he said that I'm concentrating too much on the dancing. I went to hear what he's talking about, and I'm like, all right, it's either this guy's talking crap or he's hating on me. You know what I'm saying? So it gets confusing to the point where I had to call my dad. I even called certain people, and I'm like, bon, really, my man. And you know how Asian people, they got no filters. And so I asked him, he's like, yo, what do you think? And then my mom was like, so I was just like, you know what, let it be. You know, it is what it is. Everybody got their own opinions. It is what it is.
Before we go, because you know, le ap fin ou defo, I have.
Oh my God.
I know, right? Tellement une conversation bon, right? Tell us, parce que nous connaissons que you spent the summer, you know, you were in the hospital. It's no secret. Tell us a little bit about your health. How is it now? What was the situation, if you want to go into it? And you know, how's things going?
This is the situation. I'm gonna say something real quick to all the musicians. You know, there's what I had. It was called diverticulitis.
Okay.
And diverticulitis is when sometimes it starts with the inflammation in your colon, but the inflammation sometimes could burst inside your colon.
Wow.
Mine burst inside my colon. I had a pain on my left side. I did the gig at Chloe's. I did the gig in Canada. Just like that, with fever and everything. But what is caused by that is bad diet. When I told my doctor, I told my surgeon I'm a musician, he said, you're eating the wrong stuff. And musicians, guys, girls, whatever, watch what you eat. Watch what you eat. Stop eating the junk food. It's gonna catch up to you eventually. Because 2007, I went to the hospital. I came from Haiti with Carimi, and I went to the hospital in Miami. That inflammation I had, they just gave me antibiotics.
Wow.
Now, how old was I? Like 26? Now I'm 37. 11 years later, those inflammation busted. Now they had to cut 6 inches of my colon.
Wow, serious. This was serious.
When he told me this, I'm not even gonna lie, this is when I cried. And I said, I have a tour. How you expect me to do this? Scooby came, and Scooby came to see me in the hospital. Scooby said, bruh, don't worry about it. The band will be here waiting for you. That's what upset me, because now I'm at my prime with a group, and I'm like, I gotta stay here for a month. And by this went do, I was in crucial pain that I never thought a human could bear.
Wow.
Okay, they did the first surgery. After the first surgery, I had blood clots, which I was halfway revived, so I almost lost my life.
Wow.
When they saw my pressure going down, I was sweating. I'm like, what's going on? And then I think I had blood coming out where they cut. So they had to go back to surgery again. So they took the blood clots out. There's a parts in the videos and the Instagram, you see me singing. Those are drugs they gave me. I am high, and I'm like going crazy. So I went through a lot of pain. And then after getting home, that's when I started like going crazy. And I said, I can't wait to go back. And then all of a sudden I started meditating, therapy. I'm also into martial arts.
Okay.
So I had to meditate myself. And I'm like, okay, I could finally do this. Because I'm not gonna lie, when you're in so much pain and you cannot move, you asking yourself, am I gonna move again? Because remember, I'm a dancer. I love to dance. Women bouger, you know? And like I said, and who else too had it? Chuko from T-Vice.
Oh, wow.
He hit me up. He hit me up. He DM'd me, and I sent him my number, and I said, let's talk over the phone. And then he told me that, he's like, yo, I had that. And then he showed me his scar, and I showed him mine. And then he said, and they were like, yo, don't worry about it. You'll be okay. So shout out to Truco from T-Vice. One love, bro. Thanks for that, for the help. So he was definitely one of the guys that gave me more. And then Michael, in the other hand, with the crowd singing my name and everything.
Yeah, that was dope.
Yeah, that was dope. You know, I cried. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
now here's the crying.
Here's
the crying. And shout out to my family. You know, shout out to everybody that was there for me. You know, they were hardcore with me. You know, I went through hell.
You know what the big question is now, right?
What?
When are we going to see Noldy back on stage with Vayb?
We're working on it. Michael, I haven't seen yet. I haven't seen the guys yet. Ralph came to see me. Okay. He saw me a little bit. I was 80%, 70, 80%.
Okay.
So they haven't seen me 100%. They still like treating me like a baby. They still scared. You know, there's Haiti tour involved and everything else. But we're working on it. And definitely you guys will be the first ones to know.
Yeah, because we want to know.
I know.
Hopefully it's somewhere in New York.
Yes, I'm hoping it's New York. You know, I'm hoping it's New York, but I'm trying to get back in October. I'm trying.
Well, unfortunately, the time has come. It was a pleasure having you. I think we spoke a lot about a lot of more important things when it comes to the industry, when it comes to your experience as a musician. Like you said, people can expect to see you soon, even though there's no date yet on stage with Vayb. Any last words, man, as far as, you know, your experience and Vayb? What would you like to say to your fans that's watching you?
Keep supporting Vayb. I love you guys. Thank you for the support. All that DMs. Oh man, thank you for the love. And I will be back for Guyana. We are gonna turn up real soon. And I think the doctor even put some more into my waist. All right. One love, and thank you for inviting me again.
It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure, man. It was a pleasure. All right. One love.
So everybody that was watching, it was a pleasure again. Biyografi Lari A every Sunday from 1 to 3 on KreyolJam. It was Kit Kat. Have a great Sunday, and don't forget, Musication is up next.